Dear ladies and gentlemen and distinguished panelists, please let me welcome you all to the fourth panel discussion. My name is Madeleine Shelvan and I work for a company called Bright Products as the partnership manager for UN and NGO. Bright Products is a solar company that has long experience in supplying people in emergencies with energy through portable lanterns. But today we're talking about infrastructure challenges and specifically how technology and innovation can work as an enabler. Through this last year, we've all seen the need for more innovation and the importance of technology. But while innovation and technology offer significant improvement to quality and management of aid, there are still challenges such as affordability, standardization, and simplicity. The panel today will touch upon a broad spectrum of topics such as community empowerment, the significance of ICT in disaster settings, and climate resilient infrastructure systems. I have to say that I, for one, very much look forward to hearing the different approaches and solutions to these challenges. So as you can see from the bio of the panelists, we have experts from different fields, but what they all have in common is their experience in using technology and innovation in disaster settings to provide better and quicker response. So it's my true pleasure to introduce to you today's panel for this discussion. I will let the panelists give a short introduction of themselves, and I will start with you, Mr. Amur Shandur. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Madeleine. And it is an honor to be with you today. My expertise is in logistics operations. I work basically for operations departments in Médecins Sans Frontières. I facilitate and manage innovation projects. South Sudan, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Niger, Mali, Central African Republic, Kenya, and so on. So the portfolio is a bit wide. As today I am with you, I also look after technology around in private sector, also in the humanitarian world, and I bring products from being something new to be a business as usual in our emergency interventions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amur. Giuseppe Saba, the floor is yours. Please give us your introduction.
Thank you, Madeleine, and I to all the colleagues of this panel. I'm Giuseppe Saba. My airs are clearly saying that I'm an old man. In fact, I'm into the humanitarian business now since 35 years. I consider myself, first of all, a humanitarian worker. Even the good luck of being appointed as the CEO of the International Humanitarian City here in Dubai. Well, despite my background is in the health sector, after having spent 15 years in the Italian public hospitals, I moved into African hospitals for primary health care project, and then into the UN system, where I set up the UN HRD network, is the Humanitarian Response Network. Means that I gave particular emphasis exactly to the prepositioning of humanitarian aid for emergency response. And today, as I said, I'm managing the largest humanitarian hub in the world, which is set up here in Dubai, where, for example, the colleagues from MSF, represented here by Amur, are even they part of this humanitarian city and the broad humanitarian community, which is represented with approximately 500 people and 80 different organizations, which is not only and exclusively humanitarian organization, Madeleine, but we have even commercial companies, because we consider that the commercial companies are a value added for the humanitarians, because only and exclusively with your own help that you are holding technologies, we can provide solutions for the challenges in the field. We know the challenges, but you have the experience on the technologies. Over to you, Madeleine. Thanks for the opportunity of introducing myself. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I'll give the floor to Dagbjartur Brynjolfsson.
Thank you so much. My name is, as you said, Dagbjartur Brynjolfsson. I am NetHOPE Program Manager for Emergency Preparedness and Response. I've been doing disaster response since 1989, and first domestically and then internationally for a long time. And I'm here on behalf of NetHOPE. NetHOPE is an international NGO. It's actually a consortium. It's a membership NGO where almost 60 of the largest humanitarian organizations in the world are members. We got members like Save the Children, like Oxfam, the Red Cross, Red Crescent Movement, and so on and so on, and even Medical Sans Frontières. And NetHOPE, as I said earlier, we are a consortium of these organizations where we truly believe that by working together, we can solve the most difficult challenges that the world is facing. We enable our members and the whole nonprofit sector to be more efficient, to be more effective, and to accelerate their impact through the use of technology. We have partners as well. We look at us a little bit like a connector between the tech industry, where our main partners come from, and the NGOs or the humanitarian organizations. So by connecting those together, we can be very effective. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And then we'll go to you, Gorgui S. Diallo.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madeleine. And good morning to everybody, my dear panelists. And let me, first of all, thanks, JV Global for associating us, in this event. This is the second time that we are invited, in this type of event, and we really appreciate it. So my name is Gorgui Diallo. I'm Senegalese, and I'm the president and CEO, inaugural CEO of a new NGO named Pan-Africa. Pan-Africa derived from Africa. I think, Africa, after 15 years of implementing development program in more than 36 countries in Africa, they decide, to pass the ball to Africa. So, and build, an African NGO in July 2020, and in an NGO in the US, we just focus on fundraising. And this NGO headquarters is in Dakar, focus on operations. So I'm very pleased to be here. And actually, during Africa, I share 26 years of African work, during his 50 year of implementing program in Africa. So I'm around development. I'm working and involved in development program, for more than 26 years. And, and I have the privilege to be involved in some innovation that can make us, to advance, our domain. And that's why, I really appreciate this moment to share, those lessons learned from the field and this experience, and have, some prospective view on what need to be, reinforced, and what partnership we need to tie between us, to make things move faster than is right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. So thank you all for your introductions. I will kick us off today with a question on local capacity and capacity building. So my first question is for you, Giuseppe. You have long experience with both innovation, support, and logistics in emergency settings. How does IHC intend to empower or reinforce local community capacity in emergency response?
Thanks, Madeleine, for the question. Let me start from what Doug was saying before. Say 3 key words: emergency, preparedness, and response. Now, those are key words, and Doug, I believe that is in agreement with me. Whenever we need to be really ready for responding to an emergency. Now, try to put yourself for a couple of minutes in the shoes of a prime minister. Or if you don't want a so important role, go into the shoes of the head of the civil defense of a country or any other official that has responsibility into this country in the event of a natural disaster, without mentioning, of course, complex emergencies. What is going to happen? Well, the procedures are, unless the country is well prepared and they have even the resources, they are going to take from their preposition stocks and support the population affected by the disaster. Sometimes the magnitude of the emergency is so high that they need international assistance. How does it work with the international assistance? Normally, you knock the door of the UN resident coordinator. The UN resident coordinator, which is simply a representative, needed to start in knocking the doors of the various agencies, blah, 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 and so on and so on. And then, together with the humanitarian community here in Dubai, what we decide to do is how to share the information of the humanitarian aid preposition in various countries, in various humanitarian apps. And this is where we started. We started in mapping humanitarian apps, hosting humanitarian stocks, relief items destined to international assistance, not to national, because we know very well that they are not going to move. How to know exactly where are located, who's managing, what is preposition in terms of relief items. You have only 2 solutions. You are going to request the stock owners to provide you the information, which some time ago, I'm a former OCHA, I'm not only a former WFP. What we did is that we tried to get those information, but didn't work. So what we did is that in agreement with our community here in Dubai, and I'm talking about WFP, UNICEF, MSF, and many others, we mapped something like 5,000 line items which are used for emergency response, including the IT. I know that somebody here is a specialist on the IT equipment. That is the reason why we are over the 5,000 line items. Then we identified the most correct code, HS code, which is going to identify, this is an international code which identifies the single line item. Then there is another code which identifies the company, not only the commercial ones, but even the humanitarian organization. By cross-checking those data, automatically you know what is imported and what is exported from the humanitarian hub in terms of humanitarian aid. This is what we simply did today. The logistics data bank is running in Dubai, and step by step we intend to replicate the same logistics data bank in the other humanitarian hubs that we mapped, starting from Australia, passing through Malaysia, Emirates, Kenya, Cameroon. Then you have Jordan, you have Italy, you have Ghana, you have Panama, you have the Canary Islands. So those are more or less to mention quickly all of them. Now, if you take this tool and you put in the hands of the famous prime minister or the head of the civil protection, well, we are giving them something that is extraordinary. Now try to link all together those humanitarian hubs And then we are going back, I believe that it was Doug or Amour saying, we need to work together. Yes, we need to work together, but starting in sharing the information. How is possible that I'm able to share this information? Because all the leaders of the agencies, starting from Mark Lowcock, from OCHA Undersecretary General, passing through David Beasley, Dr. Tedros from WHO, the Arietta from UNICEF and so on, everybody agreed and signed the letter of intent in order to share this information. So this is how we intend to empower, from one side, the countries that risk to be affected by a disaster, but even to involve the countries that are hosting the humanitarian hubs. This is something that, yes, we started here in Dubai, together with the famous humanitarian community and with the full community, including the commercial companies. And we intend to embrace and create this large network that is going to give the huge responsibility even to those countries that are hosting the humanitarian hubs. And here I'm going to stop. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you touched upon several themes that we'll definitely circle back to here, partnerships and obviously innovation and new technology and how important that can be. So my next question is for you, Amour. You've led and facilitated innovative projects at MSF in a multitude of countries. And with that experience in mind, what do you consider as practical innovations at MSF? And can you give us a couple of hands-on examples that have had an impact?
Thank you so much. And thank you, Giuseppe, because what you said is making a lot of sense to not only me, but I think for all the humanitarian community around in the IHC. Let me start with describing a bit our operations, because we operate in a very complex situation. MSF is an international, independent medical humanitarian organization that delivers emergency aid to people affected by armed conflict, epidemics, healthcare exclusion, and natural disasters. So this drives us to provide assistance to people based on need, irrespective of race, religion, gender, or political affiliation. This becomes a really complex set to deliver innovation itself, not only our operations, and how innovations come. So practically, innovations in MSF in general are tailored to those contexts. There is no one typology of innovation. There is no golden rule to drive our innovations. But we also learn and make a bigger picture of our innovations, and thereby we can replicate those innovations through adaptations. Also, which is very important, that we put in the center of each of our designs the beneficiary. We cannot innovate for the sake of innovation. We innovate to resolve a challenge, a problem, or a very well-defined problem, which we call in general human-centered design, making innovations through the sight of the user, or in our case, the service seeker or beneficiary or patient. Yeah, some of those are maybe also coming with examples or hands-on examples. Giving the example of the runaway bag. The runaway bag is a very simple product if you talk about it from outside, but it was complex product when we have built it. So I recall in 2017 in South Sudan, there was an armed conflict in Upper Nile state. And our teams are meant to flee because we cannot operate our health facility anymore but we needed to guarantee access to healthcare for those people who are fleeing, knowing that our colleagues are from the community itself. So we equip them with bags, including drugs for dressing for wounded people, for respiratory tract diseases, malaria, and so on. Those bags were helping us very much in saving life, let's say. And each bag was, I remember very well, it was around for 20 people, and saving 20 people is quite a number in such a very hard to reach displacement setting. Yeah, and this is only one example. If you look also at, for instance, sexual violence, where in Nigeria, in Maiduguri, Pulka project, we have scaled up an operation related to just provide households with briquettes, but not only to provide those briquettes. So we started providing them, and then we teach people how to make briquettes to substitute charcoal, because people go every day to fetch for firewood, and when they go outside the camp, they just get situation where nobody wants to be. So it is very important to state that all of those were co-designed with people. Thank you so much. I need to stop here.
Thank you so much. I think we touched upon a couple of, both you, Giuseppe, and what you talked about several aspects on how innovation can improve and support the management of aid. And I want to move towards the technological side. So I have a question for you, Gurgui. How can we leverage new technology to solve efficiency challenges in emergencies in Africa?
Thank you very much. I mean, the question for my organization, maybe was raised 7 years ago, because we have that chance to be associated in a big movement, and they call, saving life at birth. The same life at birth come from, this grand challenge, the grand challenge funding. I don't know if you're familiar with grand challenge funding. Grand challenge funding is like a basket from different donors where they want to, support innovation in development. My organization, Pan-African, is working, Africa before, is working in development and emergency. And the initiative was how we can, leverage technology, for development. But, our focus is Africa. We are only working in Africa. And when you are in a stable, in an environment like, Africa, you have to be ready. You should be ready for emergency, because, it's a very unstable environment when, disaster can happen, anytime. So, and we state ourselves that the responsiveness for emergency is based, first of all, on preparation. And preparation mean you have the information. And that's why the idea goes for us on how we can use, what we call the big data. Because right now we are deploying technology at the community level for so many programs, and how all those information can inform us, can give us, more information to help us be ready, by knowing the disaster when it occurs, okay? Using what we call, the community index, like a warning system, knowing more about the environment and how the people, react in case of development. And this pushes to develop, with the help of, yes, this donor, but also develop with Merck. We develop, some predictive model. And the predictive model give us, more information and how, we know more about the community and how we're ready to respond in case of emergency, and how we get emergency on because, this predictive model is like how to call it, real-time information that, you know, those servers are generating, and give us more information to be analyzed and know what's happening. And actually in Senegal, we deploy, you know, we are deploying this, how to call it, this model in about 6 regions. And one of the regions is really infected, you know, is really concerned by, you know, some disaster. And with World Food Program, we are providing response, you know, every year on that region. And we see, you know, how innovation and technology help us, you know, to be more prepared by knowing the community, by knowing, you know, what we should address. And this is actually one avenue that need to be, explored, that need to be reinforced, and that give us, you know, that's reinforce our conviction that even if we know that technology is a shortcut for Africa to solve, you know, for humanitarian actors to solve many problems, when we know that we are not doing enough, because the investment around, you know, all this new innovation, I think, is not at the level that actually at the level that can help us, you know, to really solve those problems. Yeah, just to give an example on you know, how this technology can be used. It was possible in this country because of the pre-investment that was done, because we should be ready to address, you know, emergency, and mean that, you know, that investment that need to be done, that innovation that need to be in place should be, you know, done prior to emergency. And that's why, you know, for example, when you look at the example of this country, Senegal, for example, the penetration rate, internet penetration rate is at, you know, 91%. That's mean, you know, the almost, you know, the country is almost covered. And that gives us, you know, the ability for us to deploy, you know, the technology and have, you know, real-time data coming from the community to us. Yeah. So for us, you know, we keep invest on that. We have some new partners named Campus who are helping us, you know, to extend this model by putting more variable to monitor at the community level and be able to provide, you know, accurate information on time to us, but also to visitors. And what something happened, you know, we're ready to, to address the situation. Thank you.
Thank you. And as you say, the need to be prepared, Dagbjarte, yeah. you talked about this as well. And what would you say, Dagbjarte, what role does ICT and connectivity play in disaster response and recovery today?
Bigger and bigger every day. That's the quick and easy question, easy answer. But communications technology has completely changed the way we do things, the way we live, the way we connect, the way we get information. And it also changes the way people are impacted by and respond to emergencies. At the same time, the humanitarian landscape is evolving. We have more disasters, we have more complex disasters, and we have even more responders, or more organizations supporting. Today, the humanitarian sector has acknowledged that connectivity has become an important part of a response, basically. Just as an important sector as shelter and food and water, for example. So getting connectivity up and running is basically a critical infrastructure. After, especially a quick onset emergency, a lot of that infrastructure is down. So it comes to us, the responders, to basically be self-sufficient, to be able to do this on our own, for us and for the affected population. So, yeah, it's a critical part of the response. Responders are using connectivity today for coordination. Just a simple task, or not, it's not a simple task. It's actually a huge task to deliver water in different places after an emergency. If that isn't coordinated, we end up with a lot of, or much more water than needed in one place and no water in another place. So how do we coordinate? Today we coordinate through technology, and that's also the quickest way to coordinate. So also this helps the cooperation. Organizations see that those that are working close to one another, because they come together where there is connectivity, they start to talk to one another and support one another. Assessment reporting can in many times be delivered almost real time. So instead of people going out with paper and filling out papers and forms, people go out today, they go out with a tablet, and as soon as they get connected to some kind of connectivity, either via satellite or mobile technology or something like that, the information is in the headquarters or in the field base, so that people can actually start to work on it. And this is a critical part. And access to information. What do we do at our home when we need some information? We bring up our phone and we start Googling. Same happens in an emergency. And that if you have access to connectivity, that might be the best way to gather information, all kinds of information. So that's important as well. And we should not, and this is a critical point here as well, we should not forget the affected population, because the affected population needs to use connectivity as well. They need to access information, just as everybody else, to help them basically self-resilience, so that they can help themselves. They don't need to rely on organizations to basically feed them with information. They can go and get it themselves. One of the things that NetHOPE does is that we provide connectivity. We provide Wi-Fi networks for responders and the affected population in the aftermath of the emergencies. And one of the critical points that we provide is what we call information as aid. And this is basically an information page, the splash page when you connect to the network, that tells you the more critical information, like where can you get food, where can you get water, where can you get shelter, what's your rights, and all this. So information doesn't become a commodity. People don't try to sell the information. You have access to the correct information, and it's free. Yeah, and of course the affected population uses connectivity as well to communicate with responders, to get more help, to tell them what's needed and what's not needed. So also so that we don't put effort in sending things that isn't needed that side. They use this to communicate to the government as well. So it's not only for the NGOs and UN and the responding organizations, but it's as well for the government. And a very, very important thing here is to communicate to their family, to stay in contact with their family. One story about that is in the Syrian refugee crisis in Europe, where we were deploying networks in Lesbos, for example. The first question people asked when they landed on the beach in Lesbos was not, where can I get shelter, where can I get water? First question, where am I? The second question was, where's free Wi-Fi? So that they could communicate and tell people, I'm safe. And this is a very critical point. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. I wanted to, as we work with solar lamps that are now also charging, we can see that in the Syrian crisis, how important the charging part of the lamp was, because they need that connectivity and a connection with family. So yeah, I think we can, in different sectors, we can still see that need. Yeah. So the COVID pandemic has obviously affected us all. We're sitting here in a virtual conference, so there's no doubt we can all feel it, and I'm sure it has affected all of you as well. And Giuseppe, I would start with you. And how has IHC's infrastructure been impacted by the COVID pandemic?
Thank you for the question, Madeline. Let me go back on the famous humanitarian logistics data bank. Whenever you have some minutes, I would suggest to enter into the IHC website. You will find it in the home page, and then you will see. But let me give you some figures that you can explore yourself into the home page of the Humanitarian Logistics Data Bank. We hope that as soon as we are able to replicate in other hubs all the, let me say, partners that are playing the crucial role into the logistics data bank, they are going to reflect on their own website. But going back on what was Doug saying before, if you open the dashboard, you will see that today, within the International Humanitarian City, my colleagues from the humanitarian sector are hosting something like more than $140 million of humanitarian aid. Trust me, if you take a comparison on the past 4 years, you will see that 4 years ago, most probably, the health material was approximately in between $3 and $4 million. Today, out of the $140 million that I just mentioned, health material represents $70 million, the 50%. Of course, just to confirm on what Doug was saying, the IT stock, and I'm sure Doug knows very well, when we talk about the fittest colleagues of WFP, they have a relevant and important stock, but as well as in terms of logistic stocks or other stocks such as the shelter, which are used for responding to emergencies. Why I mentioned in particular the health stocks? Because when you start in having health stocks increasing, means that you have to change and to shift immediately in order to host and increase your capacity under temperature control and into the cold chain. Honestly speaking, in December 2019, when COVID was not absolutely a real problem, I requested my board to approve a work plan for 3 years for increasing my capacity in terms of cold storage, as well as to improve the cold chain and to create a kitting center. Well, as soon as COVID knocked the door and saying, we are here and we need space, substantially what we did is that we increased immediately what was supposed to be done in 3 years has been done in 5 months. And we expanded our own capacity, for example, for hosting vaccines or medicines that require temperature control. We added something like 8 cold rooms, which are 5 working in between 26 degrees and 3 in -11, -21, plus a couple of frigidaires which are hosting the -70. This is how COVID impacted us immediately. I'm not entering into the disruption of the supply chain. Most probably Amur has quite a lot of example because it was totally collapsed, the supply chain, in the sense that, come on, we are seated, yes, in Dubai, we are extremely close to the manufacturers of the humanitarian aid, because the 90%, correct me if I'm wrong, Madeleine, because you have an expertise on this, but a large part of the humanitarian aid are manufactured in Southeast Asia, behind the corner. And as soon as the COVID basically grounded a large part of aircrafts, we were totally disrupted. So, and this is going to call me on two aspects, going back on what Doug was saying before, how important is the emergency preparedness to get really the right stock, to look into the lessons learned on previous emergencies that we had, because Ebola, avian flu are not something that happened before the, let's say, the Spanish pandemic. This is something that happened a couple of years ago. And we were surprised about the fact that we were not absolutely ready, not only the humanitarian community anyway, also the most advanced governments. But just to tell you how the infrastructure required immediately high flexibility in order to adapt yourself for hosting large quantities of medical items. Now, yes, that was due to COVID, is also due to the fact that the World Health Organization decided to elect Dubai IHC as the main logistics hub for them. And this is going to tell us clearly another message. To manage $4 million of health stocks is something that is totally different from managing $70 million. So, and this is another indication that altogether we are deciding to create a center of excellence, which means capacity building in order to understand better how to manage those stocks, how to support even the other humanitarian hubs for managing those stocks and so on. So this is stimulating quite a lot. The participation from the other hubs is stimulating in particular the private sector contribution, because do not forget, we cannot sleep anymore and get it granted only and exclusively from government contributions. Private sector is becoming one of the crucial donors. That's it.
Thank you. I think, I know we've experienced supply chain issues, and I'm sure, as I say, Amur, maybe you have, anyone wanted to comment on, I mean, maybe this, the pandemic is also, as you say, Giuseppe, it has to change. It changes how you, when and how long you have to use to get the technology and innovation in place. I don't know if anyone else have any comments to that.
I can pitch in here, and from our side, we've seen for the last year or so, everything has slowed down dramatically. Getting equipment into countries has become more and more difficult. Things that took, we were getting tired when it taken maybe 1 or 2 weeks, but it's now taking 1, 2, or even 3 months to get equipment into and through customs, into a country and through customs. Everything seems to be running much slower today, and understandably. There's a lot of people affected by this, so yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
If I can add to that, I see also a positive side of COVID. I won't like to say that it's really positive, but this pandemic boosted a lot of work to be done. Instead of, for instance, as Giuseppe said, for things to be done in 3 years prospection, we are talking about 5 months. For innovations, there have been a lot of funds and also a lot of initiatives from private sector as well, entering to the medical healthcare and also to the humanitarian work. There is a good side of it. I don't know if it is really worth it to say, but I think COVID have boosted a lot of initiatives and pushed people to deliver faster systems and technologies rather than procrastinating on them.
Definitely, and if I may pitch in here, there is a new norm, definitely, and we've seen people moving and technology actually becoming more and more important now that everybody is working from their home and working from a distance. So definitely, there's a new norm.
Yeah, but I have a reflection on that. Imagine a world where we don't have all this technology on place. What should be our, you know, what should mean that, you know, our resilience against, you know, disaster sometimes depend on how resources we are. And the same thinking should go also to community. How we can, you know, give them more resources, have them, you know, more infrastructure to be more resilient, you know, against pandemic. Another thing is, yes, Africa is not, for example, if I'm thinking about, you know, if I'm taking, you know, the Africa example, is not impacted at the same level than Europe and some other continent. But the consequence in Africa will be in the long term. Because I think, you know, the real consequence of COVID in Africa is the economic consequence, you know, economic and social, you know, impact. And we will keep managing, you know, years and years ago, years and years coming.
Certainly, I think we all agree on that. Yeah, unfortunately. I'll actually get back to you right away, Gugu. So we talked about partnerships previously, and which types of partnerships would you say are needed to develop and deploy relevant infrastructure?
When I'm talking about partnership, I really think that, you know, strategic partnership should be built, but thinking outside the box, not having humanitarian actors talking between themselves with donors and government. What about, you know, more involvement of private sectors? If I'm thinking about, you know, what I just said about COVID, somehow we need to have, you know, more resilient community, because actually so many people are living in, you know, vulnerability. So many people are really vulnerable, you know, to all this disaster. And we need to really think about how we learn from our experience to make sure that, you know, we support this community to be, you know, more resilient by building, you know, the necessary infrastructure that we need at that level. And this couldn't be only done, you know, between ourselves. And I'm saying ourselves, I'm not talking, I'm talking about, you know, this development, you know, emergency actors, UN, government, the traditional donors. You know, we need to involve, you know, private sector in it. Let me just give you an example. If we talk about, for example, ICT, we talk about extension, we talk about ICT, we need power, for sure. We need, you know, the network connectivity. And those big investments cannot come from us. And then, so we need, you know, to interconnect with, you know, the private sector and show them how, you know, it is necessary for them to be invited in the game. In Senegal, for example, to extend the network and make sure, for example, that the rural area have access, you know, the government invite, you know, how to call it, Elias Tower. Because Elias Tower right now is just building the infrastructure and rent it, you know, to the traditional operator. Because those operators, you know, are not ready to do this investment to make sure that they cover, you know, some of this, how to call it, no man's land, you know, area. But, you know, Elias Tower can do it because, and rent it for them, the BOT system. So this is the type of partnership that we need, to try to build, to make sure that, we can be more efficient in developing, infrastructure. We be more efficient, to build that ecosystem that can help us, to help our innovation to grow. When I'm looking about, all this innovation coming from, for example, from Grand Challenge programs, Grand Challenge Africa actually is hosted by Kenyan Academy of Science. If I see, the whole innovation coming from there, those innovations cannot scale up if, the private sector, don't want to do this investment. So it's time, to see how we can build, more strategic partnership between government, donors, traditional donors, the actors because we have those experience of living in the community, working with the community, trying to solve the situation. So we know the real need. Okay, so those are the type of partnership that need to be, linked. And I think, like a conference like this, can help to go to, to start those type of foundation, right? Another example I want to give, if I'm looking, the Senegal Compact, the actual compact for the Millennium Compact, this is free money from American people. Around $500 million, and all 80% of this money will be invested in energy. Make sure that we have the energy and power available for the most vulnerable, rural community. And those investments need to be accelerated. Why? Because the more we have less in this investment, innovation, assistance, for rural area, the more we're going to have, all those people, move into someone in big city with all this development problem, and development challenge, that we need to face in the future. So and this type of equity in investment, can be only done, if we have more strategic partnership, not only with emergency and development actors, as I tell you, but, having, private sector to be in. And for private sector, knowing that, also those innovation can also help them to make, more business, to extend their market, because private sector, yes, if you want to have private sector, they are business oriented, they need, to know that, there is a value to capture down there. Yeah, that's, those type of, I think reflection that need to be pushed, that need to be pushed further, to see how we can build those type of, partnerships. Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, a lot of good points here. I wanted to continue on the topic of ICT and connectivity. So I'll go to you, Dag Bjartur, sorry. What would you say are the key factors for a quick response and rebuild of connectivity in the aftermath of a disaster?
3 points. Prepare, prepare, and prepare.
Yeah.
It's the key to a good response. It's key to a rebuild of the community and everything. So from the get-go, from the beginning, design your infrastructure in such a way that there is built-in resilience. So you're not putting everything in basically all eggs in the same basket, basically. Keep stock on critical equipment. Today, with the just-in-time logistics, or companies tend to not keep stock. And what happens after an emergency or disaster? The infrastructure takes a huge hit. And to be able to repair that, you need stock. You need to have access to spare parts. You need to have access to cables and equipment. And so prepare, and this is not only for those running the the infrastructure in a country. This goes everything from them down to the little NGO or us as people. So have agreements in place with your vendors so that you know that in a critical situation, you can call on them and they can support you. They're willing to support you. You don't have to go out and do ask a request for quotation that will take a month after a disaster. You have to be able to go out there. You have to know what your prices are going to be because you need funding to do all of this. So have LTEs in place. Cooperation. We've talked about this a number of times here, or my colleagues have talked about this a number of times here today. Cooperation is critical. Everything from different NGOs cooperating together, coming together, and NetHOPE being one way of doing that, where we provide connectivity not only to one member, but to many members, instead of everyone have to have their own equipment and their own connectivity. But also when it comes, for example, to the ISPs, they are on a day-to-day basis, they're not cooperating a lot. It's not in their norm to cooperate. They're competitors. They're trying to stay ahead of one another. But when it comes to an emergency, the key factor here is cooperating. Just a simple thing like take off roaming charges between mobile networks or mobile operators in an emergency. So when one network is up and running, everybody can connect. It's not only their customers that can connect. These things that are so important, that way they can divide and conquer. Mobile operator A focuses on area 1 and B on area 2, so that way we can build up the infrastructure as soon as possible, instead of both of them focusing on area A, because now we have competition in area A. There's nobody doing anything in the other area, so why bother? So this is a critical part of basically building it up. Have an emergency telecommunications plan for the country or for the region. Have a national emergency telecommunications plan. For the NGO, have your own emergency telecommunications plan on how are you going to do things when disaster strikes. Don't think that you're going to invent the wheel after the disaster. Do it beforehand and write it down, have it somewhere. And that's not enough. You have to update it. Something that was written 5 years ago, only 5 years ago today, it's not actual. Especially the technology is growing so fast that even a couple of years makes a huge difference. You have to know your plan. You have to know what's there and how to use it. So you have to train everybody. Everybody has to know what their role is, and everybody has to know what to do and how to do that. It also has to be simulated. It's not enough putting a pen to paper and putting it up in the shelf. It has to be simulated to draw out the faults, to see what actually doesn't work, because I can promise you, your first plan will not work very well. Well, it might work well, but there will be some complications with it. So simulate it. That's a big thing. Capacity building. This is hugely important, and especially for responding organizations. Responding organizations have to be self-sufficient. This is something that we We know, we understand. Organizations come in and they international organizations come in and then they bring their own MRE, they bring their own food, so that and they bring their own water or water purification and they prepare so that they have everything that they need, all the equipment that they need, all the stuff that they need, but they don't think about the communications part, and this is actually very important. So responders have to be self-sufficient the whole 9 yards. That goes also to communicating and getting information back to the coordination and things like that. You have to have equipment available. You have to train on that equipment. You have to have people that know how to work around and work with that equipment and work around the problems that we do get in emergencies. So yeah, I think we'll go back to what I said in the start here. Prepare, prepare, prepare. That's the key thing here.
Thank you, Dr. So the time is running out, and I wish we had some more time, but I'll have a couple of questions more, but we'll have to shorten our answers a little bit, unfortunately. Since you said prepare, 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 I feel like this question is a natural one. So Giuseppe, what would you say is the role of the humanitarian hubs in emergency preparedness and response, and also the hosting country's role in this?
Well, this is going to embrace again what Doug was saying, as well as highlighted by Ugi, in the sense that those humanitarian hubs, yes, are run mainly by humanitarian organizations. But on the other side, what I'm expecting is the role of the hosting countries. The hosting countries cannot be absolutely just passive donors. They must be involved into the humanitarian action. Here I'm seated in a chair which is part of the government, and I'm extremely happy to be an hyperactive humanitarian worker together with the humanitarian community. This is what I'm expecting from others. Yes, the private sector role is extremely important. Doug was mentioning about the fact that the organizations should work together. There is also another reason, dear Doug, why we should work together, because after the COVID, many small, medium organizations are disappearing from the panorama, which means that we are going to get a big issue in terms of funding. And this is where I am perfectly in agreement with Gugi. The private sector is the one that really can help us. Really, I have the logistics companies knocking the door every single day, asking me how they can help the humanitarian community. Let me give an example. I'm going to take only a few seconds. Recently, we opened a humanitarian air bridge to Dubai, India, which means that Emirates, the company, the airline, made available substantially the 40% of their belly's capacity just for transporting humanitarian aid pro bono. And this is something that is coming from the private sector. And this is plenty of private sector that is trying to support the humanitarian community. For sure, this is what we have to do. Working together to be extremely proactive, to coordinate among ourselves in order to have a common approach in the emergency preparedness and also in the response. Thank you.
Thank you. So my last question, with limited time, unfortunately, for you, Amur. So I wanted to quickly circle back to the innovation part. And can you tell us how would you describe an agile approach to medical humanitarian intervention to ensure the continuous improvement?
Sorry. Basically, it is driven by ethics, which is very important, and then giving a space to try things in a safe framework. So we can never apply innovation on people or on a system without just bringing a safe place to try before just deploying them. This will make us save a lot of effort, a lot of money as well. So it's very important to be accountable to what we do as well, and to the donors, also to beneficiaries. So and this should be, when we want to try things, we need to try them based on a challenge. So it is not just to bring, oh, I need a drone, but where could I fit a drone? And it comes to me the example of, and it's a quick one, that in one of the countries I was asked to provide drones for supply. I was, wow, that's like sci-fi today, a few years back. Today is maybe possible. And the concern was not really to bring a drone. The concern was to rearrange the supply chain and to make a good preparedness plan that Giuseppe was talking about, and Doug as well, to be able to respond in the rainy season, for instance, which is really crucial, rather than just bringing a $50,000 drone and with all the risks behind today. So it is very important. Coming back to risks, we need, when we want to make an agile innovation, to evaluate the risks behind, which is not about fear, but it is about mitigating those risks and assessing what is the residual risk that we can take and move forward those innovation. It is also mandatory within agile innovation to look at the outside world, beyond the humanitarian, beyond the private, what even the community is used to, what they are doing. So bringing all of those parameters together, we can make an agile innovation, and it can be really, really fast. Over to you, Madeleine.
Thank you. So I think, unfortunately, we're running out of time. I think we could sit here for several hours. But I wanted to thank you all so much for your time and insight into these very complicated questions. I know I've learned a lot, and I hope that all of those listening have learned as well. I look forward to the Q&A, and let's hope that all of the people seeing this will join us as well. Thank you all very much.